Just moments ago, history shifted with the stroke of a single pen. Behind the sealed doors of Buckingham Palace, King Charles made a decision so monumental it sent tremors through the heart of the monarchy. In a highly private meeting inside the Queen's gallery, surrounded by only his most trusted inner circle, he signed a royal decree that will be talked about for generations. With no warning, no debate, and no second chances, King Charles officially removed every member of Queen Camilla's family from the royal line of succession. The silence that followed wasn't just heavy, it was historic. Those present in the room didn't speak. They didn't need to. The gravity of what had just occurred spoke louder than any words ever could. And for those stationed just outside, catching whispers from behind gilded walls, the message was clear: a royal reckoning had begun. Princess Anne and Prince William stood silent, stoic witnesses to a decision that would shake the monarchy. Their presence alone confirmed this wasn't a rash move. It was deliberate, calculated. The royal bloodline had been redrawn, and Camilla's family was cut out. Minutes later, Queen Camilla was seen leaving the palace. Ashen, shaken, her heartbreak visible. Escorted swiftly to a waiting car, she didn't speak. She didn't need to. Her face said everything. 4 years, she had stood by Charles, enduring public scorn and royal scrutiny. And now, without warning, her children and grandchildren were erased from royal succession. No discussion. No appeal. Just a signed, final document. Inside the palace, the fallout was instant. Longtime aides resigned, some in protest, others out of quiet loyalty to Camilla. The move split the royal household in two. To some, it was ruthless. To others, it was a long overdue reset of the monarchy. Within the hour, headlines exploded. King Charles exiles Camilla's family from royal future. Speculation spread like wildfire. Was this sparked by scandal? A buried feud? Unresolved grief? The palace said nothing, but the world wasn't waiting. Camilla's children, once background fixtures of royal life, were now gone. Erased. Some called it justice. Others, betrayal. But all agreed, this was the boldest move Charles had ever made. And for royal watchers, the real question wasn't why now. It was what took so long? Because this story didn't start today. It began years ago, with secrets, sorrow, and a legacy haunted by one name: Diana. The world was told it was a love story, that Charles and Camilla had found their second chance. But beneath the polished facade was a carefully maintained illusion. Try as they might, Diana never left. And now, she's back. Not as a memory, but as a reckoning. When Charles married Camilla in 2005, the backlash was swift and unforgiving. The public hadn't forgotten Diana, and they certainly hadn't forgiven him. Camilla may have worn the crown as Queen Consort, but she never truly won the nation's heart. To many, she was a reminder of loss, not love. Still, she stayed. She smiled. She worked. And slowly, her children, Tom and Laura, began appearing in royal circles. They weren't heirs. Not officially. But their presence sparked discomfort. To royal loyalists, this wasn't tradition, it was intrusion. Prince William noticed. Harry distanced himself. And Catherine saw it all, quietly. Behind palace walls, Camilla's family edged closer to royal privilege. Yet Charles, torn between love and duty, never gave them titles. Never placed them in line. He stayed silent. Until one letter changed everything. A message from Diana, buried for years, urging Charles to protect William and Harry's legacy above all else. That letter shook him, because Diana's words carried more weight than any scandal ever could. And so, Charles made a choice. Quietly, finally. Camilla's children would never be part of the royal succession. Whatever influence they'd had, it would end. No titles. No path to the throne. No royal future. But Camilla wasn't done. She didn't retreat. She doubled down. Tom and Laura kept appearing, not as guests, but as near royals. Exclusive invites. Proximity to power. It wasn't coincidence. It was Camilla's silent campaign, an effort to root her bloodline into the monarchy, one calculated step at a time. At first, the royals tolerated it. Quietly, begrudgingly. A small price to keep Camilla content. But what started as harmless inclusion quickly spiraled into something far more troubling. Whispers turned into headlines. This wasn't just about family anymore, it was about power, legacy, the crown itself. People noticed. Why was Tom Parker Bowles mingling with princes? Why did Laura Lopez have royal security? The media didn't hold back. Are Camilla's children being groomed for royalty? Inside the palace, tensions rose. One overheard comment, Laura allegedly saying her family's rise was long overdue, sparked fury. Catherine was shaken. William was livid. Camilla, though, said nothing. She didn't need to. Photos, placements, subtle leaks, each move was calculated. And for a moment, it almost worked. Her children weren't just near the throne. They looked like they belonged to it. Almost. Because someone else was watching. Someone who had remained silent for years. King Charles. Even as he stood beside Camilla in public, even as he offered her affection and loyalty, deep down, he never truly accepted her children as heirs to the crown's legacy. Not in the way it mattered. Not in the way that counted. He chose peace over conflict. Until the very last moment. When the final draft of a royal decree sat on his desk, ink waiting to dry, Charles made a different choice. One that would unravel everything Camilla had carefully built. Because deep inside the royal archive, hidden for over 25 years, something had resurfaced. A letter. Written in Diana's unmistakable handwriting. Not for the public. Not for William or Harry. But for Charles himself. Penned during a time of private reflection, the letter carried a warning. One that now echoed with haunting clarity. Diana pleaded with Charles to protect the monarchy's bloodline. To keep it pure. To shield it from outside manipulation. She never named names. But her message was sharp, precise, and unshakably prophetic. And now, decades later, that letter, sealed in secrecy for a quarter of a century, had returned to the light. And with it, Camilla's plans began to collapse. There was a quiet fear Diana once held, one that her son's place in the monarchy could one day be overshadowed, even erased, by outside ambition. That fear, it seems, was more than justified. Because now, many believe that very fear, captured in one final hidden letter, might be the true reason Camilla's entire bloodline has just been cut off from royal succession. No one expected to find it. The letter had been tucked away, sealed in an envelope marked only with Charles's initials and Diana's personal crest. It surfaced during what should have been a routine reorganization of Queen Elizabeth's private archive, a quiet task led by Princess and a small team of trusted aides. But what Anne discovered inside was anything but routine. She opened the envelope casually, and froze. Minutes passed. Then an hour. Staff said she didn't speak, just sat motionless, tears welling in her eyes. Whatever was written inside that letter struck a blow that words cannot describe, and didn't trust anyone else to carry it forward. She handed it straight to her brother. No advisors. No aides. Just Charles, alone with Diana's last truth. And when he read it, something inside him shattered. 4 years, he had buried the pain, justified the betrayals, compartmentalized the past. But Diana's voice, etched in her own handwriting, broke through all of it. This wasn't just a letter. It was her last emotional will. Her warning. Her prophecy. She had told Charles, begged him, not to let emotions cloud his duty. She feared a future in which a new partner might try to twist the monarchy to serve her own children. But what hit Charles the hardest was something chillingly specific. Diana had written about a child. One not yet born. A girl. She said that if William ever had a daughter, that little girl must be protected above all else. She even gave her a name in spirit. The future Diana. She wrote, "This child, should she come, will carry more than blood. She will carry the soul of the people. Protect her, Charles. Even when I'm gone." It wasn't a request. It was a mother's command, one written in grief and sealed with love. And it changed everything. Charles didn't call a meeting. He didn't consult his council. He didn't even alert Camilla. He just acted. Quietly. Decisively. He removed Camilla's children from the royal line of succession. No announcement. No press release. Just the stroke of a pen powered by decades of buried guilt. But this wasn't about punishing Camilla. It was about preserving someone far more important. Because as Camilla quietly maneuvered behind palace walls, trying to secure titles and futures for her children, something else had begun to rise. A presence no one could ignore. A force of grace, innocence, and strength. Princess Charlotte. She didn't campaign for attention. She didn't seek comparisons. But the world made them anyway. The moment Charlotte stepped into the public eye, hearts across Britain stirred. There was something about her. The poise. The gentleness. The unmistakable spark of her grandmother. The same eyes. The same soft courage. The same quiet fire. Diana was back. Not in body, but in spirit. And the people saw it instantly. And so did King Charles. It haunted him. Moved him. Reminded him. That letter, combined with Charlotte's rising presence, became the turning point he never saw coming. The monarchy wasn't just at a crossroads, it was standing on the edge of transformation. Charles had spent decades balancing image and duty. But in that moment, he stopped. He remembered the woman he had betrayed. The mother of his sons. The one voice in his life who always told the truth, even when it hurt. And her words echoed now louder than ever. Diana hadn't asked for revenge. She had asked for protection. Not for herself, but for the legacy of love she left behind. And so, with silent resolve, Charles fulfilled her last wish. Not for the sake of protocol, but for redemption. For Charlotte. Because in her, he saw more than a granddaughter. He saw a second chance. A chance to rewrite the ending of Diana's story, not with heartbreak, but with hope. And as the cameras capture Charlotte smiling beside her family, unaware of the storm behind the scenes, the people cheer. Not for a title, not for a throne, but for a girl who unknowingly became the heart of a kingdom. And for a king, who finally listened to the voice he had ignored for too long. A new reality had begun to take shape. Charlotte was no longer just the youngest member of the royal fold, she had become its beating heart. And to Camilla, that made her dangerous. Inside the palace walls, Charlotte's growing presence began to shift the balance. Each time she appeared beside William and Catherine, public affection soared. Photos of her dominated headlines, filled social media feeds, and began to spark something unprecedented. People weren't just admiring her poise, they were calling her the next Diana. And for Camilla, that comparison cut deep. She had spent years clawing her way toward public approval, always in Diana's shadow. Now a young girl, barely 10, was effortlessly capturing hearts in a way Camilla never could. Worse still, her own grandchildren were being eclipsed by a child who carried the spirit of the woman she had never been able to replace. Behind closed doors, a decision was quietly forming. When Charles entered the private chamber, he knew what was at stake. The choice he was about to make would fracture alliances, spark outrage, and possibly shatter his marriage. But this moment wasn't about loyalty or love, it was about legacy. He wasn't just a husband. He was a king, a protector of the crown, a guardian of Diana's bloodline. And so, with a solemn heart and steady hand, Charles picked up the pen. Not in vengeance, but with purpose. The document was brief, but the consequences, monumental. After weeks of silent debate and years of inner turmoil, King Charles made a historic move. With a single signature, he issued a royal decree that would rewrite the monarchy's path forever. Its language was sharp, cold, precise. For the first time in history, the crown spoke what it had only whispered in the past: that Queen Camilla's descendants, those not born of royal blood, were to be stripped of every connection to the throne. No titles, no honors, no official duties, and most crushing of all, no place in the royal line of succession. The monarchy had drawn a hard line. Camilla's family, once accepted under royal grace, were now outsiders, disconnected from the institution forever. The decree had been drafted in absolute secrecy. Only Princess Anne and Prince William knew of it beforehand. Not even the king's own secretary was informed until minutes before it was signed. Charles had been meticulous, because if Camilla had discovered the truth too soon, she might have stopped it. The pen hit paper. The seal was pressed. History was altered. And then, the palace broke. The atmosphere inside the royal residence shifted from elegance to chaos. One aide dropped a silver tray. Another burst into tears. These weren't just employees. They were people who had devoted years of loyalty to Camilla's family. The shock hit them like a storm. Panic rippled through the halls. Phones rang. Voices rose. But it was too late. Camilla was already on her way, summoned, but still unaware of what had unfolded. She entered the palace in haste, heels clicking urgently across the marble. She demanded answers. But the document had already been signed, sealed, and archived. All she found was silence. And then, as if time itself had frozen, Camilla, the Queen Consort of the United Kingdom, collapsed just outside the royal chamber. It wasn't physical pain. It was something far deeper. It was the weight of betrayal. Footage exists, though it was never meant to see the light of day. A queen, crumbling in the very palace she helped shape, undone not by politics, not by scandal, but by a stroke of a pen. The monarchy had chosen its future. It wasn't hers anymore. Her strength collapsed before her pride ever had the chance to protest. Charles didn't move. He didn't chase after her. He didn't say a word. Instead, he turned to Princess Anne, handed over the final decree, and whispered just 2 words: "It's done." That was it. No grand goodbye. No emotion. Just a cold, final decree. To Charles, it was the hardest choice he'd ever made. Done for the monarchy, his children, and the memory of Diana. But what he didn't see coming was Camilla's retaliation. Stripped of everything she'd fought to build, Camilla didn't crumble, she burned. After years of scandal and silence, she refused to fade quietly. This time, her silence was dangerous. Behind palace walls, her rage turned calculated. She demanded to face Charles. And behind closed doors, she unleashed the truth: you were never loyal. It wasn't about love, it was about betrayal. She believed he hadn't protected the crown. He'd used it. Backed into a corner, Camilla played her final card. She threatened to expose everything. Private letters. Buried secrets. Hidden truths the monarchy had long kept in the dark. If her family was erased, she warned, then no royal crown would be left untarnished. And then came the leak. Within 48 hours, European outlets reported whispers of Camilla's talks with powerful media contacts. No official interviews. No proof. But the rumors were enough. Stories of Charles's double life lit up headlines. The palace scrambled, emergency meetings, locked phones, legal teams on high alert. No one knew how far Camilla had gone, or how much deeper she could dig. One thing was certain. The crown was cracking. And Camilla wasn't done. She sent just one cryptic message. They won't erase us. It wasn't just a statement. It was a mission. Camilla was no longer the quiet consort. She had become a force of rebellion, fueled by betrayal and the pain of being cast out. This wasn't revenge. It was justice. And she was willing to bring down the entire House of Windsor to get it. Inside the palace, panic set in. Charles's decree had sparked a storm no one could contain. Damage control turned into a desperate race against time. The monarchy fractured. The public woke up to headlines of betrayal. And a single question echoed everywhere. With Camilla gone, what comes next? William and Catherine quietly filled the void. The focus shifted to the next generation. Clean, symbolic, rooted in legacy. They championed compassion over tradition. But beneath the rise, shadows lingered. Reactions split the nation. Some saw Charles's move as noble, a return to Diana's vision. Others saw cruelty, a dangerous, autocratic purge. Camilla's children, now stripped of royal status, gained unexpected sympathy. And yet, amid the chaos, one figure remained untouched. Princess Charlotte's grace, her connection to Diana, made her the heart of this royal rebirth. Camilla, meanwhile, vanished. No statements. No appearances. Her silence wasn't surrender. It was strategy. Rumors swirl. Her children may pursue legal action. If the courts get involved, every buried wound could reopen. And then there's Charles, the king who made the impossible choice. He hasn't spoken. He won't. But those closest to him say, he's never looked more alone. The crown has survived scandal, divorce, and war. But this may be its most dangerous reckoning yet. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us next time for more royal revelations.